I suppose this has been happening for a long time, but now it is affecting local affairs more. Some people are resigned to being lonely without male or female friends. Men follow appearance expectations set by the media and intensified by targeted advertising. They try to conform to a definition of masculinity promoted by advertisers instead of finding their own value. Predictably, they get rejected and become bitter because they did not spend enough time developing their own interests and finding like-minded individuals. Why is lifting weights for health and enjoyment not promoted as much as lifting to prove masculinity and attract high-value women? Women face similar issues, creating a dynamic where each gender blames the other for pushing poor values. This is a deliberate conflict created by those who want to sell products to solve problems they caused. I feel like I stepped into a time capsule by disconnecting from everything to focus on myself and work for a decade, then return to a strange reality where niche forum terms have become common language. In my opinion, if you take care of the people you value and have the maturity to uplift your community when possible, that is a good man. Doing that makes finding any kind of companionship easier. Is anyone else noticing this? Or am I just conservative when it comes to social dynamics? Thank you for the insight. I was mainly looking for perspectives I might have missed before addressing recurring issues in my tutoring group. It seems the topic is more complex than I initially thought. Thanks again for all the responses. I have been reading them between work. Your efforts to improve yourself deserve recognition. If you have any men in your life you appreciate, let them know. Story 1. You are not alone in noticing this. Many young men are growing up stuck between extreme messages. They are either told to be hypermasculine, chase money and women to prove their worth, or to suppress anything traditionally masculine. Both paths are hollow if you do not know who you are underneath it. Social media and marketing make it worse by constantly feeding comparison and selling insecurity. People start lifting, dressing, or working hard not for themselves, but just to avoid feeling behind. Confidence comes from doing hard things, learning from failure, and building values that truly matter to you. It is not flashy, it is not viral, but it is real. That kind of man builds better relationships, friendships, and communities too. Thank you for bringing this up. More young men need to hear it. Story 2. Advertising isn't the cause of my lack of confidence. Being bullied beyond acceptable levels throughout my entire K-12 schooling is. Being flirted with as a joke and the idea of going on a date with me as a punishment harmed my confidence far more than someone trying to sell pre-workout supplements. I am still trying to see myself as not just inadequate but acceptable, and I have made no progress. My public schooling involved bullying from my first day in the after-school program through my senior year and during the COVID pandemic. I never experienced being treated normally because I went directly from that environment to isolation. Story 3. We were talking about this at work the other day. Many of the older men did not really think about or appreciate that these young people came up during the whole Me Too era. Not all men are predators, but some are. During the period of great cancellation, society kept telling young men how disgusting men are. There was also a general campaign about toxic masculinity. It seemed these kids were being told how horrible they were just for having been born male. And we wonder why these kids have a problem with social confidence. Story 4. It's social media. It used to be that people only had to compare themselves to the coolest person they knew. Now, you have influencers pretending to be perfect, and you compare yourself to them. Everyone's greatest moments are portrayed as everyday life. Many people are entering adulthood when expenses are high, but salaries have not kept up. The minimum wage is the same as what I was paid in high school about 20 years ago. The rise of overparenting in childhood does not help. Children never get a chance to stand on their own and build confidence when a parent is a FaceTime call away every day. Story 5 waves broadly at all of society. Economic stress, video games, social media, generalization of misandry. The men are playing a 21st century game, chained to a 20th century rulebook. Story 6. Men are portrayed and conditioned to believe that they are inherently bad. Many women use the loaded gun argument when it comes to men, claiming that guns are not inherently dangerous, but it can be difficult to tell if a gun is loaded with only a glance. This implies that men are considered dangerous and toxic by default. Combined with the concept of the patriarchy being held over every man, regardless of whether he benefits from it or not, men have been shamed and humiliated online for clicks because they, in one way or another, have made women uncomfortable, which is unacceptable. Men are expected to be providers but no longer out-earn women in most fields. Men are expected to lead but not be controlling or toxic about it. Men are expected to be emotionally mature and available but are ridiculed for being too emotional. For many men, living in a world that criticizes every move they make and villainizes them for the way they were born, it is not surprising that men's mental health is as poor as it is. How is a man supposed to feel confident when the world seems stacked against him and no one seems to care? Story 7. Because it is easier to sell them false information and keep them hooked in your ecosystem when they think they need you. Story 8. Society is overly focused on nonsensical concepts like whether a man is manly enough. These superficial labels focus on behavior and outward appearance, which have no bearing on a person's quality. Men should focus on being good people, developing good relationships, both friendships and romantic, and being good humans in the world. Stop worrying about whether you are too much or too little of any particular label and focus on being authentic to what matters to you as an individual. Anyone who tells you differently is toxic. Story 9. Being chronically online means not having enough experience with real-world social interactions, resulting in an underdeveloped set of social skills and expectations. Combine that with the unusual culture of the manosphere, and you have a recipe for various problems. Story 10. I was told to have more confidence in myself as a young man, but somehow I lost confidence as I aged. I am 49 years old now. I believe, and you may agree or disagree, that women want to be unapproachable. I have been told, based on my own appearance, that I am also unapproachable. I assume that is because I look like an ogre. No matter, I think we, as humans, are quickly losing the ability to converse with one another live and in person. Story 11. Because they are growing up being told contradictory things, you should open up more, which most times leads to them closing up. You need to be a man and take the lead, but when you do, you're toxic and controlling. When you try to define boundaries, you're insecure and controlling. You should love yourself, but if you're not 6 feet tall, you're not even a man. Money isn't everything, but he should be making at least $100,000 or else he's broke. How can a person be confident and happy with themselves if the rest of the population seems to nitpick every aspect of their life and criticize them? Put that together with the idea that men are worthless, and you get the results we're seeing today. Story 12. Fewer third places and fewer job opportunities. Earning money has a correlating effect on confidence. Social media is our fake third place and fake dopamine. It has made us lazier. Story 13. It does. It is not hard to see where this is going. As soon as artificial intelligence girlfriends become more mainstream, many will never even attempt to date or socialize. These are strange times, and as a millennial, imagining children growing up with social media and generative artificial intelligence is so foreign to me. I wish I could live another 100 years to see what happens next. Story 14. I think it is a combination of factors such as lack of father figures, media portrayal of men as overweight clowns even in cartoons, and societal emotional suppression of boys. Toxic mothers are another factor contributing to boys growing up to be weak men. Story 15. Socializing is hard. Takes practice. Learning how to do it results in confidence. Technology makes it easier to avoid socializing, which is most appealing to the children who need the practice. The online world becomes an unhealthy total replacement for lived experiences. Artificial intelligence will make things worse before they get better. Story 16. Life does not force you to interact with others or engage with a community in the way that it used to. Working from home, self-checkouts, food delivery services, streaming, parasocial relationships with online celebrities, you name it. People used to have to go out of their way to achieve a hermit lifestyle. Now, it is literally inconvenient not to. Those who lack confidence and are frightened of social interaction simply have the choice not to engage. Those who otherwise would have gained confidence and social skills through real-life exposure now choose to opt out through technology. Story 17, my 16-year-old and my 11-year-old, along with most of their friends, have a remarkable level of confidence. It is amazing how good they believe they are at nearly everything. Story 18, I do not know what caused it, but it has been noticeable in the way young men changed from seeking validation from women and rebelling against the notion of seeking male validation at all, to desperately seeking validation from other men and not seeking or believing they will get validation from women. Story 19. Comparison is the theft of joy. In this social media-driven world, there is a constant torrent of pressure telling you what you do not have, that you are not good enough, and that you need something to fix that. Story 20. I have seen it too. I think we are leaving young men behind in favor of advancing young women, instead of supporting both. When one side is favored not physically but socially, it becomes much harder to exercise confidence in social settings out of fear of being looked down upon. It is really a tale as old as time. Society socializes men to be less confident because we have misconstrued confidence as being toxic. This leaves a gap. Just as people with no family can be drawn into a cult, that emptiness can be filled with hypermasculinity that is actually toxic. We are in a dangerous world of extremes right now, and the lack of role models in the middle ground will be detrimental to us as a society. If no one can agree, then we will fight until we do, and that really only means one thing: total annihilation of the other side. Story 21. This is largely online. I'm 31, and I remember the early internet and initial iterations of social media as we know it. YouTube was also entirely different in the beginning. If one spends too much time online without adequate external socialization, they will develop a warped sense of expectation and reality. There is a sizable amount of negativity toward men online as a result of unfavorable behavior some men have displayed. There is an unhealthy set of expectations that are unreasonable and often contradictory. In the real world, people are quite amicable and tend to navigate their preferences like adults. The only difference is that gentlemen don't pursue women like they used to. We are mindful of how certain behaviors and words have been interpreted or labeled. All the massive toxicity toward men has accomplished is putting more of the responsibility on women to make it clear they have romantic or sexual desires with a good man. I completely agree with the hobbies and identity sentiment, but I don't agree with the masculinity aspect. Young men are just as rowdy, reckless, and aggressive as we've always been. We just don't shout, "Damn girl, you fine," as often as we used to. I can tell when someone has been online too much based on what they say in person. Someone will approach with their adorable dog, and when it initially shows signs of aggression or timidness, they say, "It's okay. She just doesn't like men." I will watch as the dog shows the same behaviors toward a woman trying to pet or greet. Your dog is not automatically comfortable with strangers. That is completely normal. You don't like men, and you are projecting that onto your dog. This is entirely strange. It is notable how often this encounter has happened lately, including the same behavior toward a woman. If I were someone who absorbed my identity from online interactions and content, this sentiment would have made me feel bad. At my age, I can only softly chuckle and accept that this person is a bit off. Story 22. Stuck in a paradox where no matter what men do, they are seen as doing it wrong. Equality in pay with women can lead to criticism that men do not earn enough. Women taking higher-paying jobs means men take lower-paying ones and are viewed as insufficient. This reflects an inevitable gender shift where if one group rises, the other declines. Women want to be asked out but also want to be left alone. Men are seen as predators and creeps, yet still need to build relationships. Men need safe spaces to talk and open up, but are then seen as not masculine and weak for not being able to handle their emotions. Many men spend significant time playing games on phones or in online virtual worlds, causing them to lose real-life social skills. This reinforces the pattern that virtual life is better than real life, leading to disconnection. In real life, they often want to return to the online world. Women are also caught up online, losing in real-life social skills, but fewer become hardcore addicted gamers. Embracing their uniqueness and identity can lead men to drift toward interests that are not traditionally masculine, such as fixing or building things, which are often seen as hard work. Story 23. We have correctly identified the toxic elements of traditional masculinity, but we have not filled in the gaps left behind with what wholesome masculinity looks like. The messages young men receive do not provide a clear path or healthy role models. This leaves them either listless or leads them down internet rabbit holes toward highly damaging content. Story 24. Men are not taught how to be confident when they are not in control. If you get a man to open up, you will find that when he is in his darkest moments, it is because he feels like he has no agency in his life. For example, he cannot leave his job, cannot decide who wants to date him, cannot decide how he is perceived, cannot buy what he wants when he wants, cannot decide what is happening around him, and so on. Men have been the deciding factor, in my country at least, for centuries, and because of that, we are not taught what to do when something is out of our control. Rather, we are taught how to get control somewhere else. The 2000s have been an era that increasingly believes that people get to decide for themselves what they want their outcome to be. So men have two choices. If they do not look past their teaching, there is a third and objectively better option. Submit to this ideal and accept that everything anyone ever says about men being bad is also about them, or they can seek more control in a world where they are losing it bit by bit. That is why problematic manosphere media is so popular with young men. It does not tell them to confront and challenge their need for control, which requires a lot of nuance and emotional regulation, but rather tells them that their need for control is natural, which is true, and that they should embrace it to its fullest extent, which is not true. After reading some of these comments, I feel I should make myself clear. The failure I am claiming comes from two places: what we teach our young men, that they need to be in control, and young men believing that all men suck statements are about every single man. It is hard to see the nuance that is there, especially if you are already insecure, but absolute statements are always hyperbolic and meant to prove a point, not to state a fact, which many men do not generally accept. Story 25, of course. They have been taught in schools and through media that men are to blame for everything. Just look at the common anti-male speech on Reddit. If you vilified any other group as much as men, you would be banned site-wide in a heartbeat. All this sabotages the psyche of young men, especially those who do not have a masculine role model to follow. Story 26. It's definitely a confusing time to live in. You are not wrong about that. To me, there is some much-needed confidence shaking regarding certain behaviors men exhibit related to aggression and violence. Women are justified in demanding an end to this behavior. However, this is not to say it has not gone a bit too far. Saying all men are trash, joking about how men die, or calling men worthless to society. These attitudes are beginning to open men's eyes to blind spots we have been told not to question. The narrative that men have everything is becoming tiresome. If we say anything about it, we are often accused of being misogynistic. We see the macho, aggressive men surrounded by women, even though women often oppose such men online. If we try to follow the guide on how to be ideal, we are ridiculed for not being man enough. As a result, many men feel it is a lose-lose situation and are falling into despair. Story 27. It is very easy to sell products to insecure people. This has been happening for centuries, and it is just another case of the internet making a mountain out of a molehill. I tend to believe that the loneliness epidemic is a self-inflicted wound after consuming all the harmful content online. Story 28. It has been a practice for decades. I am 30 years old, and this type of attempted conditioning was happening when I was in preschool and kindergarten. Story 29. 1. Social media. 2. Government propaganda. 3. Corporate media propaganda. They are interconnected. The dilemma is that despite progress in health, well-being, and rights, there will always be scammers who exploit these areas for personal gain. Then the government cracks down on the problem, and people with legitimate issues get caught in the fallout. I had a distant relative who made a career out of identifying with every disadvantaged group she could. She simultaneously claimed to be Aboriginal, have post-traumatic stress disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and numerous other conditions that receive benefits. She constantly posted on YouTube and TikTok with donation links and fraudulently claimed every government handout available. Why? To avoid working and finance her addictions. She refused all help for her addictions. We all reported her to the appropriate authorities. Her 2 children were removed from her care, and the following year she overdosed. She was harmful to every person in the country who genuinely needed support. Story 30, choice paralysis, perhaps. Growing up in the past, the world was not as connected, and people did not relocate as much, so people grew to be like those near them. Now there are many competing visions of who you ought to be or who you could be. You likely moved somewhere without community roots. Family, religion, and institutions do not hold as much sway. The world is uncertain and hostile. That leads to a lot of anxiety. As men, it is important to know that this is happening all around us, whether or not people admit it. Check on your friends. Invite newcomers into your group. Give people grace. Have patience. Build your community. Story 31. It is the expected result when the most popular content format is videos under 2 minutes in length. People do not have the attention span for personal relationships. Story 32. Fear of real-world interactions, reduced ability to socialize, and a greater inclination to spend time alone on the phone. There is much higher risk aversion compared with early millennials, although we have already started to see some change among later millennials. Story 33. There is no intention. It is just that our economic system does not care for the well-being of people. That has led to people who do not care either getting into power in our political systems. Story 34. It is Men's Mental Health Month, and you are being canceled and banned when you try to raise awareness to support your fellow men. Any more questions? Story 35. Because all they do is stare at their phone, even when they walk. The few who do not have a reason to be confident. Story 36. This is a result of the idea of patriarchy. The idea is that men control everything and oppress everybody. The solution proposed is to make men less confident and ultimately weaker. The truth is, there is inequality between the sexes, but in the developed world, it often favors women. Men need to stand up and reject the idea of patriarchy, the notion that men are bad and wrong simply by virtue of being men. This idea may have been true in the past, but that time has long passed in the developed world. We should not tolerate this sexist idea that is making men, especially young men, much weaker. Story 37. Women have been defining masculinity for American boys since World War II. With fathers working in offices instead of on farms, mothers began raising boys at home. The vast majority of school teachers are women. As a result, boys spend much of their developmental years learning how to appease women and adopting women's ideas of what a tolerable man should be. This has negatively impacted their development and mental health and is a significant factor in the prevalence of codependent men. Story 38. I feel like one of the contributing factors is a misleading definition of masculinity. Men who don't feel that way or give in to that mentality may feel left out or even inferior, even if they are overall better human beings than most other men. Another factor may be that innocent men are shamed for harmless behavior because they are mixed in with toxic men who do the same behavior but with different motives. They are actually targets of sexism because of the actions of others who share the same gender. Also, some people who have issues with toxic men take it out on entirely innocent men, which is completely unjustifiable. Many men are afraid to ask out a woman in the most innocent way because they fear she will overreact even if they have done nothing wrong. It is no wonder awful people like Andrew Tate gained popularity when men are conditioned this way and have nobody else to affirm their worth. Story 39. It's not just you noticing this trend. My friends and I talk about it all the time. Technology and advancements have made life better and worse at the same time. Younger generations grew up with much easier access to things, so they expect everything to come easily or with instant gratification. If they don't get it, they give up. Those of us who grew up before the year 2000 or in the analog age had to put in work and be resourceful to figure things out. Google was not mainstream. We had to go to the library and search for information in physical books. We had to get creative to entertain ourselves. If you wanted to talk to or see your friends, you had to pick up the house phone and call them, ride your bike to their house, or get a ride. Accomplishing things through your own work builds confidence and grit. Story 40. Demoralization. You can do whatever you want to a society when the young men are so disenfranchised they will not defend it. Story 41. Young men's jobs are being given to women. Women can have this role, but they can also have others like being mothers, school teachers, or nurses. As far as greater society is concerned, including most women who are dating, men are still expected to be providers and breadwinners. If they cannot do that, they do not have jobs and are not considered suitable for dating either. It sounds pretty depressing. Story 42. Where is the notion that young men are conditioned to be less confident coming from? In what way? Because of advertising and marketing? That is not new at all, and if anything, it has greatly decreased in the past decade or two. Women used to have it significantly worse. Look at the average female model from the 2000s. They were extremely thin, and if you were even slightly bigger, you were deemed fat. Maybe I am just a millennial now, 29 years old. But the beauty standards women faced were outrageous. Maybe my viewpoint is skewed because I grew up with 5 older sisters. But what men have to go through is nothing like what women had to go through. It has gotten better for women. But then, when marketing for bigger women emerged and plus-size models appeared, people shamed them. When women started to work out, the message was, don't work out too much, or else you'll be too masculine for a man to want you. But that was when women had to find their own confidence. I'm not doing it for men. I'm doing it for myself. There is a current trend for men too, but not nearly to the same extent. I think the chronic online culture nowadays perpetuates confidence issues. People who spend a lot of time online lack confidence skills, so they post about it. People see a wave of individuals with confidence issues and then say, wow, men have it really hard. But in reality, the online environment messes with one's self-confidence and self-worth. This is not a gender-specific issue. Self-confidence issues from chronic online culture are a universal experience. The best way to counter self-confidence or loneliness issues is to get off the internet and do what you want. Confidence will not magically appear. It takes time. The longer you delay it, the worse the issue will become. Self-confidence does not come from surrounding yourself with people who agree with you and enable you. Because what happens when you are in a different environment with different people? Confidence comes from within. Story 43. There are many reasons, several already mentioned in replies. Social media is a serious problem. I'm glad I didn't grow up with it, and by the time it became widespread, it was mostly for reconnecting with old friends and posting lighthearted pictures. Some of the content I encountered during limited browsing is truly ridiculous. These so-called high-value women and men represent the most cringeworthy, unrealistic, shallow behavior I've seen. The men often act like cliché bro entrepreneurs, but the women, good lord, say things like, I will not talk to a man unless he earns $3 million a year minimum, has this particular car, owns this much property, and does not expect me to pay for anything, but I'm a super high-value independent woman. Give me a break. Over the past 10 to 15 years, I've noticed how vilified men have become in media, social media, online discourse, celebrities, and society in general. The ultra-feminist men are evil idea has filtered down, becoming a diluted notion that many women use to justify their own behavior. My father taught me to be a gentleman. Hold doors open, assist elderly people or those having trouble carrying goods, allow women to enter first, and so on. Lately, reactions to that behavior have shifted from courteous to anger, confusion, bafflement, and suspicion. For example, I arrived at a shop door at the same time as a younger-looking woman recently, held the door and said, after you. She scoffed and replied, I don't need a man to hold my door. And I just stood there in disbelief while she walked through. I'm not saying men aren't at fault. Just look at US politicians. But many women and the media act as if women are never the villains, and that is not true. Society has labeled men as the villains, and this is the idea young men grow up with today. Women have gained a significant amount of social power in almost every area except the US government. While there is nothing wrong with this, I've worked in several women-dominated offices and have experienced considerable inappropriate behavior, gaslighting, and toxicity. Many office jobs previously held by men are now given to women, and the job market is challenging. If you are a man who is involuntarily unemployed, society often sees you as a failure. Story 44. Social media doom spiral created by self-selecting into comfortable echo chambers. It really is that simple. Young men, like most of Generation Z, prefer comfort and safety. That is not an insult. It actually makes perfect sense given the major events that shaped their lives. Today's young men were born during the War on Terror and the massive social upheaval that created. Many were just old enough during the 2008 financial crisis to see their parents' lives devastated or were born into the immediate aftermath. Then, as they were growing, they saw one of the hottest economies in history that seemed to make everyone wealthy, and that ended abruptly with COVID just as they were getting ready to enter the workforce. So comfort and security it is. Unfortunately, this means that you avoid many uncomfortable situations that create growth. Especially if you spend a lot of time online where finding a community of people who will never challenge you is far too easy. These communities drag each other down with negative thinking, but they are so insulated that it begins to seem like everyone agrees with your worldview and the world really does conform perfectly to the negative ideas you started with. Everything really is the worst. You will be alone forever unless you are 6 feet 4 inches tall. Women really do only date men who make at least 6 figures. It is impossible to find male friendship. All of that is utter nonsense. While things have gotten a little tougher for men, they have tightened for everyone. Men actually tend to have smaller effects than women. Take the male loneliness epidemic. Men are just now starting to get close to the level of loneliness that adult women have experienced for the last 30 years. Dating is not any harder than it was before the first 5 years of dating applications. Despite all the layoff news, there are still plenty of jobs, and unemployment is still basically at record lows while real income is at record highs. The median age for first-time home ownership has barely changed, increasing by about 1 year every decade since the 1960s. Things are, by and large, about as good as they have ever been unless you are a person of color or transgender, in which case rest in peace. But these online echo chambers, full almost entirely of young men without experience giving advice to other young men without experience, have convinced young men that society has impossible expectations that they will never live up to. Meanwhile, if you go outside and talk to some young men out and about, they will tell you that things are more or less pretty okay. It turns out online forums and messaging platforms are not actually real life. Story 45. It all comes down to bad parenting. Generation X has been absolutely awful for children. Millennials have not been much better. They have allowed a lot of unrestricted access to social media, and parents are not making the effort to explain to them what is and is not real and why it is bad for them. All it takes to raise a confident and happy young man is parents who encourage that behavior through their actions. Story 46. There is no point in asking why. There are many societal problems to blame. I have watched so many young men waste their 20s and stumble into their 30s with no idea where to go or what to do. We used to call them late bloomers. I suppose I was one in the 1980s. I had a nice career in sales, but I did not make much money. My relationships were difficult. I was trying hard, but it just did not work out. I have a lot of compassion for young men. There is not much sympathy for them in society. They do not seem to know how to behave, and their decision-making skills need improvement. I do what I can to support them. Story 47. Feminism was intended to uplift women, but for decades it has been suppressing men instead. Feminists sought more women in management and higher workplace positions. However, most women still could not compete with the highly competitive men who attain those roles. As a result, feminists targeted these men by attacking their advantages and labeling them as toxic masculinity. This mindset has spread throughout society, leading to a system that actively tries to feminize men, taking from them to give to women. Equality has become a zero-sum game benefiting women. Despite this, women have not closed the gap, while entire generations of men and boys have been held back to support less than 1% of ultra-competitive women. This is a significant loss. Story 48. Evolutionary psychology really took off in the 1990s. Many evolutionary psychology experts have entered marketing and advertising. Much of what you see is designed to create insecurity in key areas of life, encouraging you to address them by purchasing a product. You are not wrong. Most successful products target psychological vulnerabilities. Whether it is directly stating you need something to improve your social life or selling a product that allows you to appear moral, such as electric cars, especially when they were produced using child slave labor for mining and powered by fossil fuels on the electrical grid. This is generally why heavy phone use is associated with anxiety and depression. Story 49. I don't understand the concept of looking up to leadership. Did you look up to celebrities or politicians as role models when you were a child? My father told me that actors and celebrities experience pain and stress just like we do, and that a good politician is charming but dishonest. My role models were men in my community. My father, my uncles, teachers, and church members. I spent a lot of time outside rather than inside the house. As an adult, I realize now that I missed a lot of cultural things like Dragon Ball Z or playing Tekken or Mortal Kombat because we were always outside either working or playing. Now, as an adult, I fish, go camping, and meet men and socialize. I respect and support women as well. The idea of men versus women only exists on social media. In the real world, they appreciate us. Story 50, Feminism, the Me Too movement, social media, and the last 3 to 4 years of being told they are toxic and misogynistic for being men. Story 51. I am not sure that is accurate. I think in an age of much more information and connection, people are simply more self-aware at an age when we are more vulnerable. Story 52. I think there is a group of people who believe we need social change, and to some extent I think they are right. The problem is their approach to the solution. They realize it is difficult to change the status quo, especially when everyone is happy and content. Their solution is to constantly point out how bad everything is, promote pessimism, and sow discord to achieve the change they want. Story 53. I do not personally see this anywhere but online. I play in a weekly poker game that has a good number of guys in their early to mid-20s, and they are certainly not lonely or lacking in friends. If someone were to start talking about a masculinity influencer, they would get roasted thoroughly. Story 54. You can walk out of the house 300 pounds overweight wearing lipstick and a raccoon tail but plug, and society will tell you that you are beautiful. Story 55. American men are taught that Caucasian men are responsible for everything bad in society, and Caucasian women are helpless victims who still face oppression. Story 56. I don't think it is conditioning, but rather that they are not resilient, and life has not finished challenging them yet. Story 57. I don't remember the last time I felt validated or comforted by someone else on any aspect. It is very hard to find value in yourself when you feel like the world puts zero value on your opinion, tastes, problems, and insecurities, as if only women were allowed to have them. As soon as you bring up the problem, people become very defensive and look at you as if you are evil. Sure, you should not care about what the world thinks of you, but you cannot avoid the pain it causes forever. Story 58. They are probably addicted to social media and always comparing themselves to other people who give the illusion of being better, more successful, richer, or having an attractive significant other. The list goes on. Story 59. Confident is such an American word. Can you be confident and introverted at the same time? Can you be confident and tired at the same time? Can you be confident and bored at the same time? Story 60. It's not necessarily intentional, but men and boys have been left behind due to a heavier focus on promoting and uplifting women and girls. This is combined with a sharp decline in male figures in positions of influence and authority in children's lives, due to the rise and encouragement of single mothers and men being slowly pushed out as teachers and in childcare. As a result, boys are raised primarily by women and are told that the things they innately enjoy and want make them bad by default. Story 61. Social media, dating applications, and the increasing difficulty in distinguishing oneself from the sea of competitive individuals in both the workplace and dating environments. There is a reason why the top influencers thrive on social media engagement, focus on physical appearance, and talk constantly about status. It is what young men desire but find hard to achieve. Additionally, the trend on TikTok of grown women calling average-looking men or boys chopped, busted, or ugly does not help. Story 62. Yes, it's as easy as media, fashion choices, and schooling. There is way too much to get into. I have a son and a daughter. I don't take sides. But the biggest losers of having weak men are their future wives. Story 63. It is intentional. Once you realize that we are just a subordinate class, you will understand why things are the way they are. The medicine is not designed to heal you. The food and fabrics are poisoned. The lighting makes you sick. Your entire life is designed to support the elite. The biggest risk to their control over society is men being men, so they attack it systematically. They have been putting pesticides and chemicals in the food, water, and fabrics to lower your testosterone levels. None of it is a coincidence. Story 64. What is being done to young men is emotional abuse. They are relentlessly insulted, humiliated, belittled, attacked, shamed, and blamed all day, every day. This is psychological abuse on a civilizational scale. I have never seen anything like it, other than 1930s Germany. It is deranged. Of course, they are not confident. Most young men have never heard a word of encouragement once in their lives. Why is this happening? That is a good question. Women and the media have become deeply hateful groups of people. Why this has happened, I do not know. Men have given women everything they have asked for in the past 60 years to gain their approval. They hate us more than they ever have for our efforts. Story 65. Hundreds of replies and almost all of them miss the point. There is money to be made from insecure men. The more insecure they are, the more they spend to avoid feeling that way. It is capitalism. It is always capitalism, folks. Story 66. Honestly, I think the answer, at least for me, is pay not keeping up with expenses. We are fed this life of wanting to provide for our loved ones, wanting to go on vacations, buy cool cars, and that is getting increasingly hard for normal people to do. My dad worked at a steel mill and had a house with a pool, a sweet muscle car. He paid for his mom's house, went on fishing trips frequently. He is now a fisherman, so it was kind of work, but still had time to be a gym rat, get divorced, lose everything, build it back up, meet someone else, have a family, buy a house, and retire comfortably. My girlfriend's dad has a similar story. Muscle car, sole supporter of a household with 3 kids, and still living a pretty prosperous life. He is a landscaper. These men worked extremely hard. This is not even about them. I am glad they got all this stuff. The issue now, though, is that job and lifestyle do not exist. Some of my most successful friends, who are far above a standard job, cannot do the cool car, cannot even dream of a house for another 15 years, and are budgeting madmen. I want to provide for my family and help everyone live prosperous lives, but the dollars just do not go as far anymore. So I am working harder and getting less. It is a momentous hit to confidence, being all consumed in something to help you be the provider but still sprinting to try and have the essentials, not the luxuries. It is easy to feel like a failure at that point. I am nearing 30, have a good job, work hard and too much, and feel weird when it is obvious my girlfriend is ready for the next step. A house, a new car, a wedding, and we simply cannot do that right now, even though we are both working as hard as we can and saving. The idea of not being consumed by work and budgeting and being able to do those fun, crazy things you hear about from older times seems so out of reach it is like a fantasy now. But at the same time, some people are wealthier than ever and show not a prosperous life but a life of ease and abundance. A guy is not just showing off a house online, he is showing his real estate empire, his car collection, his huge farm, or he can just travel freely and live life. He will tell that to you via social media and blame you, not the circumstances around you, for not living that life of abundance. I do not think it is anything beyond that, to be honest. It is a lot harder to feel like you are doing a good job these days. Story 67. I heard about men's circles today. I think they are great ideas and I am mentioning them because I want more men to know they exist in case they were unaware, like me. I believe they would help many men discuss the issues they talk about here in person. Story 68. The effects of increasing popularity in feminism mean that one side often has to suffer while others enjoy themselves. Story 69. Right-wing think tanks have been working for decades on a method to get young men to vote for right-wing politicians. They erode their opportunities for confidence and then encourage them to direct their resulting frustration at women and the political left. This distraction prevents them from noticing that the left's goal is to provide everyone with equal access to confidence. Story 70. Because of people like Andrew Tate, men no longer think that having an average or unattractive woman who is loyal and treats them well is enough or desirable. Instead, they want to attract an attractive woman. Everyone is now shallow, and people treat each other as commodities. The world has always been difficult, but now it is a modern kind of difficult. Story 71. Social media honestly affects both genders. Kids constantly see peers or influencers with fancy toys, nice clothes, and everything they think they want at that age. Eating disorders and body dysmorphia have long been significant issues for young girls, and it is likely worse now because, before social media, the only hot girls were at school or celebrities. Now, these images are constantly online. For boys, it has always been similar. Young men with strong male role models in real life are typically fine. Those without such role models often search for them and may follow harmful alpha male influencers or business experts who claim worth comes from money and material possessions. Encourage your kids to participate in sports with great coaches and be actively involved. I volunteer with my local high school wrestling team, and the coach is a great role model. Kids who complete all 4 years gain confidence and a sense of self-worth. They do not have the time or energy to engage with harmful influencer content. Some kids who quit sports tend to spend excessive time online reposting problematic alpha male content. Story 72. Times are changing, and most people did not have time to philosophize on what that meant back then. They certainly do not have the time to do it now. Story 73. I don't think this applies only to men. It applies to everyone. When you have access to the internet and media, unlike in the past when none of that existed, you have access to much more information about what others are doing. Back then, you didn't care at all what someone outside of 25 miles was doing. You only cared about your local information and life. You see more of what is going on outside, especially at a young age, and it affects mental and emotional development. A fully emotionally and mentally mature adult won't be affected by media and internet bias, but what if you are exposed at such a young age when you are still very immature? You develop delusions, lose a sense of reality, and mentally stagnate. I know many people who center their lives on what others, such as influencers, are doing. They are always upset and stressed by how much they lack compared to others they see on media, and their mental development cannot progress into fully grown adults. Media is no longer just about helping people stay informed on relevant news. It has transformed into a marketing tool to influence people to buy or increase awareness, regardless of how negatively that affects people's mental state. Most media marketing isn't trying to sell you something good for you. Energy drinks, overpriced impractical luxury brands, merchandise, and so on dominate. The marketing money put into things actually needed in life and good for people mentally or physically is only 1% of what is spent on unhealthy products. Story 74. Strength is back in vogue, with men beginning to reject expectations of weakness. Men are regaining their confidence after the negative effects that weakness has caused. Story 75. I don't know why, but it is prevalent across all of Reddit. Threads like this one, with men complaining, are everywhere. Every man-related subreddit is constantly full of sniveling about women and feeling sad. There is constant self-doubt, discussions about abstinence, voluntary celibacy, and worrying about how their life is going to be. Mostly, it revolves around women. I have no idea what exactly is going on. Story 76. Does it seem as though young men are conditioned to be increasingly less confident in themselves lately? No. By the way, why ask it as a question if you are clearly not interested in a discussion? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.